time is now 8 o'clock and I call to order the Finance Committee, the regular meeting for Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. The time is now 8 o'clock. I do see a quorum of the members is physically present. I'm going to entertain a motion to permit those members not physically present due to personal illness or disability, employment purposes, or the purpose of the board, family, or other emergency or unexpected childcare obligations to participate by video or teleconference. I have a motion by Member Dessart, second by, I think, Member Rutledge. All those in favor? Okay, any opposed? Motion carries. Welcome, Member Yu.
Thank you.
Okay. Can I get a roll call now?
Member Cahill, Member Childress, Member Covert, Member Dessart, Member Eckhoff, Member Evans, Member Galassi, Member Garcia,
Here.
Member Heather, Member Honig,
Here.
Member Krajewski, Member LaPlante, Member Ozag, Member Rutledge, Member Schwarzy, Member Tornatori, Member Yu,
Here.
Member Zay.
Okay, thank you. Member Eckhoff just walked in, so let's make that reflect in the minutes. Okay, Chair, is there any public comment today? Nope, no public comment today. Chairwoman's remarks today. Just for your information, I kind of got a little bit shocked by the news last night about federal granting being halted from the federal government. We will have a discussion about that under new business today. So just if you can keep your comments until then, so we can see how that does affect us as a county here. Moving on. Approval of minutes. Can I get an approval of the minutes? Motion by Member Tornatori, second by Member Header. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion. Okay. Moving on to budget transfers. Can I get a motion to approve transfer of funds from salary and wage adjustments to benefit payments in the amount of $4,669 to move funds into the benefit payments to cover vacation payout for the fiscal year 2024 for finance and tort liability? Got a motion from Member Header, I believe, second by Member Evans. Any discussion on this? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the transfer of funds from salary and wage adjustments and employer share IMRF to employer share IMRF in the amount of $8,050 to cover the remaining shortages in personal lines for probation services in the state's attorney office for the fiscal year 2024. Got a motion by Member Evans, second by Member Galassi. Okay, any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Got a motion to approve transfer of funds from software and maintenance to IT equipment and capital lease in the amount of $87 to cover the negative line balance from the fiscal year 2024 Regional Office of Education. We got a motion by Member Rutledge, second by Member Galassi. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the transfer of funds from software and maintenance, part-time help in the amount of $1,815 to cover final payroll from fiscal year 2024 for the Regional Office of Education? Motion by Member Honig, second by Member Evans. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the transfer of funds from professional services to regular salaries, employer shares IMRF and employer shares Social Security in the amount of $23,174 to cover the pay increase for the administrative assistant for fiscal year 2025 for the Regional Office of Education? We got a motion by, motion by Header, second by Member Honig. Any discussion on this? All in favor then?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the budget transfers of 1/28/2025 for the various companies and accounting units? Motion by Member Honig, second by Member Rutledge. And we have a question by Member Krajewski.
Because again, back to my $87 question, et cetera. Can't we just take the first five and throw them into this one where we just say various companies and accounting units? We just seem like we just to combine a whole bunch into one line. Cause it says various companies and accounting units. Could we just put the first 5 in there too? Okay, look at that. That's pretty easy. We could just put them all in there.
Are we saying yes, we can? Okay.
I got two
State's
copies over there from
attorneys,
the state's
district,
attorneys,
assistant
but-
state's attorneys saying, sure, why not?
I mean, we have various ones there. We just kind of put it generically, various companies and accounting units.
So let me briefly explain that. When you see that one item at the end for budget transfers those were approved at committee. The ones that you individually approve are ones that have to be, are the ones that the committee, the finance committee has first seen. The other committees have already seen these.
So we just have to put those first 5 out to committees first.
Okay, member Galassi?
Yeah, you could.
Just since you're up there, I just was wondering, so there's no materiality threshold? Because I was surprised to see an $87 one on there.
So we talked about this at JPS. Any item that touches personnel or capital has to be approved by the committee and board. That's through a state's attorney opinion, through the attorney general opinion. That's why we do that for any dollar amount.
I'm sorry, member Krajewski?
For personnel, I still don't know if that means subcategories of personnel. Cause I would think if we approve for total payroll of $7 million, that however they allocate it between part-time, overtime, full-time,
Any-
temporary time, whatever time.
Any line item under the personnel category is what the attorney general, with the recommendation of the state's attorney, has advised us to do.
It's pursuant to statute that they have to be approved by you.
But it says every line item. I mean, I understand personnel, if we're moving money.
Personnel and capital, and we've interpreted that and we've talked to the Attorney General's office, anything affecting personnel and capital. So yes, you could combine those things, but they still have to be taken to a vote. If any transfer of personnel or capital.
So if we just approve the budget with just one line item payroll, that's our normal accounting, but we can have all the reports we want to break payroll out, right? I mean, if we just said they get a payroll, their total payroll for their salaries is 6 million. And that's our line item, but we can have whatever reports we want that has nothing to do with payroll to say how it's broken out. I used X for this, and this.
We budget by category, and within that category, in order to report on an annual basis in the annual financial report, we use those line items to track current and historical spending of salaries, health insurance, IMRF, Social Security. We can't lump it into all one
And when
category.
we do our audit, I assume the audit just shows payroll for that department total.
No,
It
in the,
that's every line item?
in the annual financial report, it breaks out each department in each line item in the general fund and other funds. So yeah, we do report. in
Okay, I'm
detail.
gonna move on to member Zay now, and then maybe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think what you said is exactly what we don't want. We just don't want to give them one lump sum that we can't track. We can't know where benefits are. We don't know where there's open head count. We don't know where there's, been non-filled areas. I mean, we have to keep track of it. That's exactly what we're trying not to do, is to make sure when if we did that in the past, then we would have people at the end of the year with lump sums that we don't know where it came from. Plus two, we have a lot of departments. I mean, stormwater, we got different departments, transportation, public works, facilities. We need to break that down so we can keep a good track of the budget.
Well, there's the transparency issue. And then when the auditors come in, let's just say we had 5 accounts that we use in each department: personnel, contractual, commodities, capital outlay. Our auditing costs for our external auditor would go up exponentially in the work we would have to do to prove out what those charges are if we didn't use individual line items. It'd be near impossible to get through an audit
Okay.
because for the size of the county.
And I think we're all in favor of transparency on this board. That's something I'm really proud of this board. Member Cahill.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say, Jeff, is that number one, transparency. Number two, for the audit purposes. The committee transfers that we've all approved in committee are under 6F. Anything else, we need to sit here and be able to see this and review this, no matter what the dollar amount. So thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? All in favor then? Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, moving on to procurement requisitions and animal services and moving on to member Krajewski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on ASP 2 25. Recommendation for approval of a contract with Midwest Veterinarian Supply, Inc. for the purchase of cold laser therapy system for animal services.
Got a motion by member Krajewski, second by member Header. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're gonna move on to economic development and member you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to discharge the Economic Development Committee with regards to item 25-0356, transfer funds from regular salaries to benefit payments in the amount of $6,149.
Okay, all in favor of this? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you. And now I move to approve the transfer of funds from regular salaries to benefit payments in the amount of $6,149 to provide funds to cover benefit payments, vacation and sick time payouts to specific employees, and to cover compensated absence accruals for FY '24.
Second? We got a motion by member you, second by member Header. Any discussion on this? Member Zay?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it didn't say anything, but could we get next time this is for workforce development? This doesn't say anywhere on the thing. It just kind of says you have to go and look for it. So, you know how everybody has like clerk's office, sheriffs, but this one kind of lacked it this time. So
Okay,
it made me
Number-
do a little extra work.
I'm sure that's something that we can add very, very clearly on that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to human services and member Schwarzy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on HSR 325, recommendation of approval of a first modifications to Community Development Block Grant Agreement with Bridge Communities, Inc. Stability Program for families experiencing homelessness.
Got a motion by member Schwarzy, second by member Covert. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move on HSR 425, the 2025 to 2029 Consolidated Plan and 2025 Annual Action Plan element of the Consolidated Plan, DuPage County Consortium, first reading. Acceptance of the 2025 to 2029 Consolidated Plan and 2025 Annual Action Plan element of the 2025 to 2029 Consolidated Plan for Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnerships, and Emergency Solution Grant Programs to qualify and receive the Department of Housing and Urban Development grant funds.
Got a motion by member Schwarzy, second by member Covert. Is there any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to judicial and public safety. Member Evans, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to discharge the Judicial and Public Safety Committee as to agenda item 7D1 JPSP 11-25.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, continue, member Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve JD1 JPSP 11-25 recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to the DuPage County Health Department to provide a court navigator for court participants in the 18th Judicial Circuit for the period of February 1st, 2025 through November 30th, 2025 for a contract total amount not to exceed $48,000.
Got a motion by member Evans. Were you motioning member Eckhoff or you have a question?
I had a question.
Okay, member, second by member Header then, and then question by
I don't know
member
if
Eckhoff.
Suzanne Armstrong's on the line or not, but this is a new part-time position that we're putting in, and I was just wondering what hours this person's gonna be working and what courtrooms and what are the duties.
I believe Suzanne Armstrong is online. I'll defer that question to her. If not, I will get you that answer.
I am here. First off, we're very pleased that the county board approved this in our budget. The court navigator, which is another word for social worker, we are initially scheduling this for all day Monday, all day Tuesday, and Wednesday mornings. So that's the initial. We're going to see how it works out, but those are the absolute busiest times in the courthouse, and then we'll keep evolving as we move forward.
Are there any specific courtrooms or duties that the person has? Are they going
So
third floor, fourth floor? Mental
Right
health?
now, we have an office for the health department on the third floor, and we have a dedicated phone number and email for the court navigator. And then the judges can have the clerks contact the court navigator as needed. Right now, we've seen that juvenile court has been somewhere that the court navigator has been called to. There was an individual present in that courtroom who was possibly suicidal. And so they needed someone immediately to kind of talk to this person, assess it. They were able to, I don't know the results of it, but they were able to take that person and meet with them and work on it. And they also brought in crew from the state's attorney's office. And so it's just, we're going to evolve and see how it goes. But right now, it's just call as needed. And also she, is trying to get known in all the courtrooms too.
Well, they've got a background in mental health care and therapy and things like that?
Yes, Amy Coleman is the person she's a supervisor at the health department. She has an incredible experience to start this program. She worked in the probation department. She's been assigned to the jail on behalf of the health department. She, is a licensed, I believe, clinical social worker, and really knows the court system from a lot of different angles.
And the final question I have is, who is this additional headcount towards the county, or is this something that just stays on the health department?
Right now, it's just a contract, so I don't know on the health department side, but we just have this contract.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Member Hutter?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to take a moment to highlight the leadership of Chief Judge Bonnie Wheaton in making this a possibility in our courts, and also the partnership that we have with our health department and how effortlessly and collaboratively our executive director, Adam Forker, worked on this and making this happen. So thank you to both of them.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that also. Member Desart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to point out that we did receive an email invitation from Judge Wheaton. And so if you have any other questions, Member Eckhoff, there's a meet and greet for the new navigator on Thursday, January 30th from 11:30 to 12:30. Just wanted to let you all know in case you missed that email. Thank you.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't know if I'll be there or not, but I just wanted to make sure that all of you had the benefit of the answers to my questions.
Thank you, Member
That's what I'm
Eckhoff.
here for, to help.
We always appreciate your input, Member Eckhoff. So thank you. Okay, go ahead. Okay, don't do that. Okay, did we approve that yet? No, right? Okay, do we have a motion to approve? We did. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, continue on, Member Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on JPS CO-125, amendment to purchase order 7032-1 serve issued to Trinity Services Group to increase the contract encumbrance in the amount of $100,345 for a new contract total not to exceed $1,325,376.
Give a second. Second by Member Hutter. We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on JPSP-7-25, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Axon Enterprise, Inc. for the purchase of an interview recording system for the Sheriff's Office for the period of February 1st, 2025 through November 30th, 2028, for a contract total amount not to exceed $172,633.19.
Got a motion by Member Evans, second by Member Zay. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Member Evans. Moving on to legislative and Member Desart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve LEG P0001-25, a recommendation for the approval of a county contract to McGuire Woods Consulting LLC to provide consulting services as lobbyists representing DuPage County before the U.S. Congress and the federal executive branch for DuPage County's Division of Transportation, Public Works, Stormwater Management, and all of the other county departments and agencies for the period of February 1st, 2025 through January 31st, 2026 for the county board for a contract total amount not to exceed $96,000.
I've got a motion by member Desart, second by member Covert. Is there any discussion on this item? Member Desart.
Thank you. And I should have said this first before I moved, but I'll say it now during discussion. During the short time that we've had McGuire Woods, which is 1 year, we've only had them for 1 year. They've done so much for us. Getting congressional approval for more than $1.5 million in FY25. Federal funding through the congressional directed spending. They've gotten us 1.1 million in stormwater management projects. $250,000 in infrastructure and mobility work, $300,000 in flood reduction. Plus, they track all of the federal grant and funding opportunities for DuPage County. So I hope you'll join me in approving this contract. Thank you.
Thank you for all that information, member Desart. It's always good to have that on what our lobbyists are doing for us. I appreciate that. Is there any other discussion on this? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to Public Works and member Childress.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move on FMP 125, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Red Wing Brand of America to furnish safety shoes and boots as needed for the facilities management, public works, stormwater care center, and division of transportation for the period of February 23rd, 2025 through February 22nd, 2026 for the contract not to exceed $46,400.
We've got a motion by member Childress, a second by member Zay. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you, member Childress. Moving on to technology and member Covert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on TECO 000125, amendment to county contract issued to Revise LLC for professional services to plan, design, and implement a custom website and to provide annual hosting support and maintenance for information technology to increase the encumbrance by $16,500, resulting in an amended contract total of $188,600, an increase of 9.59%.
Okay, we've got a motion by member Covert. Who was the second? By member Schwarzy. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor then? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, member Covert. Moving on to transportation and member Ozog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for approval of DTP 000425, recommendation for the approval of a contract to RTA Fleet Success for fleet management software for the Division of Transportation for the period February 1st, 2025 through January 31st, 2026 for a contract total not to exceed $46,317.75.
Got a motion by member Ozog, second by member Desart. Is there any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Continue on, please.
Thank you. I move for approval of DTP 000625, recommendation for the approval of a contract with Monroe Truck Equipment Incorporated to furnish and install 2 dump bodies on 2 Ford F-550 chassis for the Division of Transportation for the period of January 28th, 2025 through November 30th, 2025 for a contract total not to exceed $74,797. Contract pursuant to Intergovernmental Cooperation Act.
We've got a motion by member Ozog, a second by member Zay. Is there any discussion on this item? I seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you,
Okay.
member Ozog.
Thank you. I move for approval of DTP 000525, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Sutton Ford Incorporated to furnish and deliver 2 Ford F-550 Super Cab chassis for the Division of Transportation for the period January 28th, 2025 through November 30th, 2025 for a contract total not to exceed $144,260.
We've got a motion by member Ozog, a second by member Hutter. Any discussion on this item? All in favor then?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much, member Ozog. Moving
Thank
on
you,
to
Madam Chair.
finance resolutions, and I defer to member Cahill.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
I move on FIR 1825, acceptance and appropriation of additional funding for the Aging Case Coordination Unit for program year 25 in the amount of $10,000 for the period of October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2025.
A motion by member Cahill, second by member Rutledge. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Thank you. I
Any
move-
opposed? Motion carries. Sorry.
Oh, Sorry, okay.
Nope,
I move
sorry.
for approval on FIR 1925, acceptance and appropriation of interest earned on investment for the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, Company 5,000, Accounting Unit 1,700, in the amount of $1,365, Community Services.
Got a motion by member Cahill, second by member Galassi. Any discussion on this? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move on approval of FIR 2025, acceptance and appropriation of interest earned on investment for the DuPage Animal Friends Unrestricted Program Year 25 Grant, Company 5,000, Unit 1310, $1,428.
Got a motion by member Cahill, second by member Header. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval on FIR 2125, acceptance and appropriation of the ILD CEO Community Services Block Grant, Program Year 25, Intergovernmental Agreement Number 25231028, Company 5,000, in the amount of $1,269,609.
Got a motion by member Cahill, second by member Rutledge. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move on approval of FIR 1225, additional appropriation for the Animal Services Fund, Company 1100, Accounting Unit 1300, $3,066,910.
A motion by member Cahill, second by member Header. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move on approval of FIR 1325, additional appropriation for the Animal Services Fund, Company 1100, Accounting Unit 1300, $87,750.
And a motion by member Cahill, second by member Rutledge. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move on FIR 2225, authorizing execution of an intergovernmental agreement between Wheaton Park District and DuPage County on behalf of the DuPage County Clerk for polling place accessibility improvements.
Okay, got a motion by member Cahill, second by member Rutledge, and discussion by member Zay.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. You know, a little concerned about this. I mean, I understand we got the grant, but why for two facilities in the Wheaton Park District, why are they not ADA compliant, especially Park District facilities? And why are we paying for it? And then does this open us up then to set a precedent for every other polling place that's not ADA compliant? I would think that would be one of the questions that would be asked of polling places. Are they ADA compliant so they could be a polling place? I mean, I don't understand that. I mean,
Do we have someone from the clerk's office on the line or here in the audience that can answer this question?
it just seems strange to me that we're paying for a park district to be ADA compliant.
You make a good point, and I wish I had an answer for you. I do not. So I guess, can someone check with the clerk's office and try to get us an answer before the county board? Okay, we'll try to get that answer for you.
Okay, and wouldn't we, when you get a polling place, wouldn't you ask if you're ADA compliant? And if they're not, then
Not
they wouldn't
disagreeing with
qualify
you.
for for a polling place? I mean,
I would think that would be something that would need to be necessary before you
Okay,
have it as a polling
great.
place. Yes.
Thank you.
Agreeing with you. So we'll get that answer for you before county board. Is there any other discussion on this other than that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right now, the motion carries. We'll have more discussion on that in the county board. Okay, next item, please.
Yes, FIR 1725, approval of round two of the small agency grant program in the amount of $1,050,000.
A motion by member Cahill, second by member Schwarzy. Is there any discussion on this? I know we're gonna have a discussion on, I believe, this later, so any questions you might want to wait till then. Okay, all in favor then?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
Moving on, FIR 2425, I move for approval of an agreement between the County of DuPage and DuPage Pads for additional sheltering capacity in the amount of $200,000.
A motion by member Cahill, second by member Schwarzy. My discussion on this is yay. Any other discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mhm.
Okay, and then informational?
Yes, I move to place on file informational, wire transfers, appointments, and grant proposal notifications.
Got a motion? You don't. And payment of claims? Do we have that in there?
I think I said that.
I think,
Payment of claims, wire transfers, appointments, and grant proposal notifications.
okay. I thought you said it too, but I'm hearing it. So we're just making sure. Okay, so we've got a motion and then who's the second? Member Galassi, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those are now received and placed on file. Okay, moving on to our presentations, we're going to start with our surplus presentation. Okay, we're going to look for Nick Kottmeyer and Jeff I'm going to say your name. Let me see. Martinovich. Martinovich. Okay, Martinovich. I asked you last time.
And no worries, I've been called worse. Good morning again, everybody. This is the time where we are actively completing our fiscal year 2024. And we wanted to provide you with probably a final update before our external auditors, Baker Tilly, come out, let us know where we stand financially. So at this point, we are very confident in the projections that we are showing today. We believe that we'll be very close when we go to finally report. And a large part of this has to do with another really excellent year in our general fund. So I'd like to go through that. What we typically do is take a look at some of our major revenue sources, then our income statement, and then I'm going to turn the presentation over to Nick, who's going to go over some projects for your consideration that could be funded out of the 2024 surplus. So starting out with sales tax, our sales tax budget now represents about 56% of our total general fund revenue. And what we've provided to you is 4 years of actual broken down by month. And I'm happy to report that at the end of 2024, we were $4.95 million over budget in sales tax. So in the second to the last column where we have the yellow highlight, that is our surplus projection for sales tax. But take particular interest in the last 4 months. It really has grown substantially, which is a great thing. So we went into 2025 and we approved a budget of $138 million. At the end of 24, our actual is $137.9 million. So we feel real good that the $138 million for 2025 will be realized, and hopefully will continue to grow in sales tax. There's really nothing leading me to believe at this point that we should see any major pullback in sales tax. So another good year. Next slide. Income tax. This is commonly known as LGDF. The county receives its portion of LGDF income tax based upon a per capita rate distributed by the Illinois Department of Revenue. This is for our unincorporated population. We have a population of $95,936. At fiscal year end 2024, we generated $16.291 million. And that was over budget by $2.29 million. So really good growth in income tax again this year. Our per capita rate is $169.82. The Illinois Municipal League projected for 2024, a rate of $170.69. So they were very close. So we continue to use those projections going forward. Our 25 budget, we increased that to $16.35 million. So the state shares with the county in total of all receipts 6.47%. So that is our portion. There was a lot of discussion during the state budget year of getting that back to 10%. That will not happen, obviously, in our fiscal year for 2025. So, but nonetheless, we're still projecting really good growth in this revenue source also. The next slide, we want to provide you a projection with cannabis tax. Again, we have 4 years of actual. This we projected to be slightly under budget. For 24, we had a budget of $3.153 million. It came in a little bit over $3 million, so we were under budget by $101,207. At this time, we have 16 dispensaries. The last time we talked about cannabis, we asked the Building and Zoning Department to go out there and survey the number of dispensaries that we have. At that time, Warrenville had one under construction. Whether that means additional growth or not, we don't know, but we are going to keep the sales tax budget, and we did I'm sorry, I said sales tax, I meant cannabis tax budget at $3 million. And the last slide I want to talk about before we hand it over to Nick is kind of the nuts and bolts, or the meat and potatoes of our general fund budget. This is a consolidated income statement as of 1/22 of 2025. We now have really good hard numbers with updates to the 2024 budget. Again, provided 4 years of actual data, broken this down by each category in revenue and expense. Our FY 24 projected with all revenues is $248,936,270. That is 2.65% over budget. On the expenditure side, same thing. We've broken this down by categories for all departments within the general fund. We had a 2024 current budget of $257,015,022. Total expenditures came in at $236,609,527. We were about 8% under budget. So when you take our total revenues, subtract that from our total expenses, we are projecting today a pretty hard surplus right now of $12,326,743. Sure.
Okay, we'll take a couple questions on what Jeff's presented. Member Cahill, you had the first question?
Sure. I wanted to ask you about interest. It looks really great that we are 104% up on interest. Am I reading that right?
Yes.
Our investment income. So tell me about that. 164.
That is all the available cash and investments that are invested by our treasurer's office. I know that about a year and a half ago, they changed their investment managers, and they've done a pretty good job. Statutorily, as far as investments, we can't invest in stocks and things like that.
No, of course.
Yeah.
But
And
I think there also is money from the settlement on the opioid. And is that being invested? Is that part of that?
that's
Or
in a
is that-
separate fund.
Okay, that's in a separate fund.
Yeah,
Okay,
this
'cause
is
that was
all-
$5 million or something we have
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah, this is all the idle cash and investments that we have within the general fund.
Okay, Member Cahill, did you have a question? Member Cahill, Member Galassi. I'm looking right at you too. I apologize. Member Galassi.
That's okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The red. I'm gonna go.
I'm
with the
just
red.
curious if you can give any color on whether or not, so the actual sales tax, we're seeing a nice upward trajectory, which is great. Do you have any sense of what portion of that upward trajectory is due to inflation versus economic growth? Or
We think
fragment-
inflation at this point is probably built in. It's my understanding the way inflation works, prices typically don't come down. You just want to control it so it
Sure.
doesn't increase anymore. So
But
that's
I get-
kind of, that is baked in.
No, I understand that, but I mean, if prices are increasing, so is sales tax. So I'm just wondering, is the increase in sales tax because prices have increased or because we've seen economic growth? I'm sure it's
I'm sure the answer is both,
I think it's both.
but do you have any idea how much is due to economic growth?
No, unfortunately, we don't get any data related to that.
Okay.
It all goes to the Department of Revenue and they just distribute it. We try to keep updates about certain economic things that are happening. One thing that happened about 3 years ago is the internet sales tax. So at this point, we've generated probably over $100 million because of that. It's probably $27 million a year extra just in internet sales tax. It was a substantial boost. So you have that in there. You have inflation as far as costs going up. But what that really didn't do, and one of the things that we try to really track is we didn't see spending slow down. We haven't seen it really slow down in 2 years. Typically in inflationary periods, you'd see that slow down, and that doesn't seem to be a trend. We've heard from a lot of economists. I've gone or sat through a lot of updates, and that's just not something that we're seeing at this point.
Okay, Member Honak?
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question on the other financing uses and the expenditures. From 2023 actual to 2024 adopted budget, that's a significant decrease in expenditures. And then it went up again in 2024 and then also was projected to be a little bit more. So can you just describe to me that category and what the decrease and why that happened and then the increase from there?
So in 2021, 22, and 23, we generated surpluses. So, and you're going to see this discussion here in just a couple of minutes. The board at that time and through those years decided to allocate those surpluses to capital projects. So the transfers within those years are a part of that, and it increased those other financing uses or the transfers out. You're seeing right now the 24 budget or the 24 projected is 29.7 million. If the board does move to approve these recommended surplus uses, you'll see that increase.
That makes, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Member Schwarze's next.
I just noticed the difference in salaries, $5 million. Is that just not fully manned or?
Yeah, that is. Our headcount remains about 115 employees under what we had budgeted.
What we approved.
Yeah, and health insurance is down. IMRF is stable. The one area that we have worked pretty hard in the 25 budget, you'll see commodities and contractual. Those are significantly under budget. We carve those out. We know what those line items are that are significantly under budget. We worked with the departments, try to reduce those as much as we could. So we'll see how that plays out in 2025. But as far as our expenses being so far under budget, the one category, contractual and commodities, is really trending under, helping to cause that.
Okay, Member Tornatori's next. Okay, Member Krajewski's next.
Thank you. Just two things. One, to Member Galassi's question, Greg Bedloff can actually provide, the state will break it out into 9 categories of the sales tax. So you can get an idea of the trends between automotive, apparel, and see which has gone up and which has gone down. And they just actually pulled one for me for the Village of Westmont, so they could kind of see where their increased growth was, but also what sector's not doing well either, to potentially recruit. My question is, I know it's a $12 million projected surplus. That's after we've already transferred 14 million, didn't we, already out of there? So in that adopted budget and all your actuals, those are after we make changes throughout the year. I've been asking, and maybe we could seriously get this now, for the last 5 years since 2020, I would like to see the revenue and expenses that we actually approve at the beginning of the year, our budget, and then show us, the differences, because we've been generating 20 and $30 million surpluses for the last 5 years. And then we go through these exercises towards the end of the year to try to put it somewhere. And then again, now to put it somewhere, because the actual budget we approved a year ago, is probably going to be what, a $28 million surplus, because we've already moved money during the year.
Right.
So when we say adopted budget, that's after we changed it during the year and adopted a new one, right?
We provide Yeah, the adopted budget and then any changes through budget transfers or board.
We've
approval.
already moved, because we got another
The
12
current
million. We've already moved 14 this year, right?
Right.
So our surplus this year is really 26, but that's the same thing that's
Right.
happened in 21, 22, and 23.
Right.
And I would like to just see how off we are in our budgeting. I mean, we're saying at the beginning of the year, when we adopt a budget, this is what we think revenues and expenses, and we've been off 20 to $30 million consistently over the years. And I think it's gonna show us that maybe half is revenue, like you showed sales tax and income tax going up. And the other half is because these budgets that we approve, we never get near what we do it, because categories that, whether it's the elected officials or us, put in there, we never get there, but they put a budget number of 100,000, they only spend 50. And so that would give us a good idea of where we're off at the beginning of the year when we approve budgets, to see how far off we are each year, and maybe help us to hone in on both the expense side and making our revenue projections better. Because this is another year, it's 26 million that we missed it. Last year when we approved the budget, it's $26 million higher in a surplus than what we approved. Now we've transferred 14 earlier in the year, so now we have 12 left over. But this is the same thing that's happened the year before and the year before that and the year before that. So if we could just get provided to us what our original budget was that we approved before December 1st,
242 million.
I understand, but for each year from 2021,
Oh,
22,
yeah, we could provide that for each.
and the expenses.
Yeah.
And then what we actually finished at, so we can see how much we were off from our original budget.
Yeah.
Not when we change it during the year, like we did this adopted budget. It's already accounted for the 14 million surplus, and now there's another 12.
Yeah, I mean,
I just want to see those numbers. I think it'd
Okay,
be helpful. I don't
okay.
need a discussion, but
Okay.
just so you could provide that.
Quick question for you,
No
Jeff.
hurry.
Is that something that can be looked up on an OpenGov?
oh, sure, yeah,
Have you had a training on OpenGov yet to try to see if you can figure that out? Just,
No, that's why we have a staff that we pay to be able to provide that report to us. It should be a pretty easy.
no, I
5
understand. I just think
years.
that it's also good that
If you
if they're all
want.
trained on that also, so
I'll get it.
I know you.
Have somebody do it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Members A.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And obviously it's good news. It's better than the opposite. But now we've had many years of very large surpluses. I know only 1 year we abated $5 million back to the taxpayers. I mean, if we continue to have these huge, this isn't just a blank check for us to go out and spend more money. I mean, again, we should maybe start thinking about tightening our budget, looking at abating property tax, between the CARES Act, ARPA, the surplus, and we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. And that, again, it's surplus is a good thing, but again, when do we start thinking about the taxpayers and abating some of that money back to them? And I know we have such a small number on our property tax, but again, we're responsible for the money we receive. And again, it's just not, hey, we got all this extra money. Now Nick's going to give us hey, we're going to spend it here, there, and there. At one point, we should maybe look at abating some property tax back, maybe doing some help for, where we can at that point. Because again, we're not talking small numbers. It's better than us being in the negative, obviously, but every year seems to be up there. I mean, knock on wood, hopefully it continues that way, but at some point we got to look at maybe abating some property tax to the taxpayers. And again, we can't do it every year because then we're going to hurt us in the long run, but maybe every couple of years we could think about that.
Okay, next up I have Member Ozog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to save my remarks about where I'm headed when Nick was going to speak, but before we talk about abating or anything, I think that we need to hold on to any surplus that we have right now, because I don't think we have a clue what's coming in terms of federal government. This freeze on spending, nobody knows what's going on. And I think that it would be really prudent of us to hold on to our money. I'm not trying to take thunder away from whatever Nick is going to propose, but I think we need to be very, very cautious. We don't know what's going to happen. And I'm concerned, obviously, transportation, Federal Highway Administration, et cetera. So I don't think we know what's going to happen. So I hope that as we continue this discussion, we are very prudent and very conservative with what we do with this surplus.
And one question I have, I mean, the finance budget, we've had the ARPA money for how many years now? So I think we're going to have a little bit of a reality check in the next few years in terms of our budget, correct? Because a lot of the money, even I know our sales tax is coming in and I know it's higher. And I know that's part of it, but I know we've had spending money to go towards capital projects, things like that because of the ARPA funding, and that's now gone.
Yeah,
Right.
we have our arms around that. We know that there's, I think about $3 or $4 million that we're probably gonna have to pick up once ARPA is exhausted.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that we're keeping that in mind also. Okay, I've got Member Galassi next.
Thank you. I just want to echo what's been said in the back row. It is, I mean, it is wonderful that we have this surplus, but it's also concerning because we need to be more prudent about the budget process to not be missing by this much consistently year after year. So, I mean, I just looking at the sales tax when the trend is 134 and 22, 136 and 23, and then we still budgeted 133 and 24. I'm glad to hear that you did budget 138 because that's more in line with what the trend is showing. But I just, I would like to see that we are finishing the year much closer to what we're actually, the budget that we're approving. So just
Okay.
wanted to make that
Definitely a
comment.
goal to go towards. Member Schwarzy, I have next.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's comments. I do want to echo Member Ozog's comments about what's coming down the pipe. And specifically, I'm concerned with our community services, which protects our most vulnerable population in this town. 80%, up to 80% of our budget is federally funded. And that's a $25 million budget. So 20 million of that comes from federally funded. I don't know what we're going to do if we lose that money. So thank you.
I appreciate that, and I wholeheartedly agree with you, Member Schwarzy. Member Cahill.
So I kind of feel two-sided. One, I feel like we need to budget closer and we need to be more actual compared to actuals and budget closer. But two, I think any surplus should be then conservatively used to put in our reserves, do capital projects that we know are coming. We need to use that money for what we know we have to do here at the county to relieve our future capital project reserves.
Thank you, Member Cahill. Is there any other discussion on this, or can we let Nick come up and do his portion? Thank you. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you. Good morning. One thing before I start, Member Galassi, you mentioned the opioid, just so you know, there's 4.62 million in the opioid fund. So that is lockbox, basically. Any expenditures out of that would have to come back to this board. And that wasn't part of that discussion. So next slide. So we heard from Jeff where we sit. So right now in 2024, we're projecting $12.3 million budget surplus. Now that could change a little bit because we're still receiving invoices coming in through the end of the month for 2024. People are very few of them, but it'll change a little bit, not much. So kind of an update. If you remember back on September 20th, as part of the chair's budget discussion, she recommended 7 million in expenditures. You can see up there the normal facilities management capital. As you remember, the facilities management does not budget their capital. That comes out of the surplus yearly. That's the 3 million they need to do their normal everyday work. Also, she recommended $1 million for the campus floodproofing project, and we'll have more into that. Stormwater Elmhurst Quarry, she recommended $1 million. We'll actually have more discussion on that as well. Vehicle replacement fund for $1 million. If you recall, that was during for some of those on the board a little bit longer. That was one of our big pressure points for the budget back in probably 16, 17. And that's a big, and by having that vehicle replacement fund, if we don't fund that and we don't buy vehicles, then we kind of fall behind, and that allows us to do the regular purchases. And then also adding $1 million to the general fund reserve contribution for 7 million. So ultimately it's your surplus. We have to decide today that's 7 million and then the additional 5.3 million above that 7 million. Next slide. So a couple of rules of the road for the surplus funding. It was mentioned by several of the members already. This is for, consideration projects, down payments on upcoming already approved obligations, one-time considerations. It cannot be used for capital or for ongoing operational because that'll create a structural deficit in the 25 budget. And our goal on all of these is to reduce pressures on future budget years. We're not trying to invent projects out of this. If we know we have an obligation, this is an attempt to fund those obligations out there. So basically there's a lot of unknown, and I'm going to have a discussion later regarding the executive order in that was issued yesterday. What we can do, if we can decide everything rolls into reserves, that's an option. We can decide we want to fund all of these projects. That's fine. Some of the projects, if we do fund all the projects, you guys can basically put a brick on it and say, go ahead and do that, but let's not spend any of it for 3 months. And it'll be in the right place. And if you need to pull it out for what you're going to do, you can do that. And then, so you can have that. But we need to make a decision. And at the next board meeting, we need to put this money in the right accounts. Otherwise, it will automatically then roll into reserves. So that's kind of where we're at now. If we do nothing, it will automatically go into the reserves. Next slide. So first one, Elmhurst Quarry. We've heard a lot in stormwater. You've got the keyway down there with certain repairs. That was where that initial $1 million from the chair recommended came from. Well, as we know in stormwater, there's been a lot more found, some subsurface issues, some other issues. There's a lot of unknowns out there. That is a very, very large facility that benefits a lot of people, and it is going to be capital intensive forever. And the thought process is, let's fund it another $1.5 million for a total of $2.5 million between the $1 million originally recommended plus this $1.5 million. So, and that would then be given to stormwater in their budget. Next slide. The other one we're recommending, if you remember, the chair recommended $1 million toward the campus flood proofing, parking deck rehabilitation. Those are our two big capital projects in facilities management that we have left. The campus flood proofing, that is, I mean, let's face it, we're seeing more and more flooding, and we have it here on campus. That's a picture of 2013. We could throw up, another 5 pictures of flooding that bad or worse here on campus over the years. We think by protecting all of the buildings, it's between 4 and 6 million. The other part of it is campus parking deck right here, the 421 deck, and then also judicial deck over there. There's about 9 million of remaining work. We've already done quite a bit over there, the big ticket, but there's still about 9 million. So you're looking at roughly 13 to 15 million remaining there. We're recommending another $1.5 million in addition to the chair recommended for $2.5 million. Once again, this is paying down future obligations. At some point, we will have to bond this. We're trying to figure out a pay-as-you-go plan so we don't have to bond it. Next slide. Here's this is an obligation we have. The sheriff and ETSB maintain a radio tower within a Hidden Lakes Forest Preserve. It was installed. It was, everything. The shelter is degraded. The tower needs upgrading. We've done some of the work in 24. We purchased a new shelter. We have to run power, do everything, but in order to bring it up to what we need to for functioning, $250,000. That is a sheriff's project managed by facilities to do that. But once we get this done, that'll be good for many years. Next slide. This is one that it's by no means an obligation to do. This is one of those, we were looking at projects out there in the York Township unincorporated area. There's large area that has well water out there. They have expressed an interest over the years of moving toward Lake Michigan water. So there'd be about 1,500 residents in unincorporated, approximately 500 homes. If we do move forward, they would have to do a special service area to fund the actual construction. We have received about 300,000 in grants that might actually be at risk now after what we found out. But total design for this is about 950. We're talking about 450,000 for design. We would have design completed for both of these sections in unincorporated Lombard We would then present to the residents the final cost and they could decide whether they want to move forward for a special service area. For those, this area came up in probably 2010, I think, was the last time that they wanted to move forward. And about half of this area did move forward at that time, and this would be the other half. Next slide. This is a obligation. We have the J.R. McBride Bridge. Back in 2015, we did designated and designed a memorial bridge in honor of a previous board member, District 4 board member here. IDOT is completing some major renovations and repairs in the bridge. It's become in disrepair. And in order to basically bring it back up to the level that we would like to have it, it would be 72,000 because IDOT will not pay for what we've done for the original dedication. If this would be acceptable to the board, that money would be given to DuPage DOT, and they would coordinate with DUDOT to make those improvements. Next slide. Next one, Family Center. That is, those who don't know, that's across the street. Probably some of our most vulnerable residents go through there. They have asked us to consider replacement of furniture in, I think, 4 different rooms. It is heavily used and it's used, I mean, it's definitely used a lot with the families. They would like different types of furniture and basically more robust. It can be cleaned better. They're asking for 62,000 one-time expense. Although it is a community services function, it would be managed by FM for buying that furniture. Next slide. Right here on campus, the security gates over the 501 parking, that's right behind the jail. They are not functioning and inoperable right now. We would like to make some minor improvements there to basically make them operable, make it safer, and that would be 33,000. Once again, it's a sheriff project that managed by FM, but that would definitely improve the safety considerations over there. Next slide. So here's something that probably not a lot of the board members know. We own the Historical Museum building in downtown Wheaton. It was dedicated to us back in the 50s or 60s, I think. The Wheaton Park District basically operates it, runs it, and they're stationed in it. We have put in a lot of money over the years to maintain that building. It's 1862 building, I think. And that is our obligation. There is well over $1 million in capital needed on this, but this is kind of paying down some of the obligations we have. We would work with them to figure out, I mean, I think probably the biggest one, the front steps there are actually unsafe and we'd probably reconstruct those, but we'll work with Wheaton Park District. They have been extremely successful in getting capital money from the state over the years. They're willing to contribute up to 10% for this as well, so that we can move forward with some of the projects, pent up projects there. Next slide. And, to the point we talked about before, the chair recommended $1 million in our reserve fund back in September. We have, at the end of 23, we have 107 million in our reserve account. And then we're recommending another 500,000 be considered. That would make it 109,000, which would put us at right under 46% of our 2024 fund, that our budget. The board has a policy, 25% would be the minimum. So we're definitely over that, but something to keep in mind, we are highly, highly dependent on our property taxes. That's kind of our, if anything, kind of a sales tax, I'm sorry, highly dependent on our sales tax, which is kind of our Achilles heel a little bit. If that does go down, that's why we're much higher than a 25%. But we are recommending another 500,000 go in that. Next slide. So the final piece, kind of our balancing point, the board passed a resolution December 10th that talked about loaning money to DOT for their new maintenance garage. We don't know, at that point, I think we were talking in the $15 to $20 million range would be what their shortfall is. I mean, if we don't, let's say the economy goes down, they would have to borrow it and pay interest. what we, assuming everything kind of maintains, the thought process is we will loan them money out of the general fund. They will pay us back no interest, and then we don't have to pay the interest fees to the banks out there. This is a kind of a start down payment, and it'll be our balancing point. If we get more, if we end up with more surplus, then that number goes up from 709. If we have less because we have more bills come in, that number goes down. But basically, this is a start to that obligation that we have to them. We have 3 or 4 years to loan the money. And the thought process is we kind of get the process going. The nice thing about that is that, when they do pay it back, it will be paid back to the general fund in the future and future years. And so this would be a start to that. But like I said, this will be the balancing point that we move forward with 709. Next slide. So went through them awful quick. I know that everybody received this last week. You can see the 2 groups. The original chair recommended in September for 7 million. And then the group to the right is the additional 5.3 million. And, once again, it's your surplus. If the answer is we want to put it all in reserves, so be it. If the answer is we can do this, but nobody spend it for 3-4 months until we see how the federal issue, because you always pull it back out of there if you have to. But we need to have direction, which way to go. So at the next board meeting, we can bring the appropriate resolutions.
Okay, I know we have a few questions on that. Member Desart had her hand up first, so we'll start with her.
Okay, thank you so much. Hey, Nick, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. So I'm just doing the math here. So with a $19.5 million surplus, I'm just doing
12.5.
12.5, gotcha. Okay. So my questions are these. Back to the infrastructure project. The campus flooding project, I think is necessary. I agree. And the total cost is 4 to 6 million, and the chair is recommending 1 million. So where does the rest of that funding come from?
So it's a long-term project. And what we've been doing, our goal is, so like if the board approves $1 million for the flood proofing, or the $1.5 million, so the chair recommended $1 million, and then we're saying another $1.5 million out of it, so $2.5 million. We will focus on the buildings that are probably have the lowest entry and the most susceptible to flooding, and then work from there. It's a multi-year project. I mean, we're in design right now as we speak, and so this is going to be an obligation. We've kind of shifted away from the old way of let's bond out 20-30 million and do a bunch of projects, to let's try to do pay as you go, because we're not spending as much on interest then at that point. So we're focusing, just like with the parking decks, we've already spent 3.3 million. We focused on the most critical repairs, and we're staging it as we go.
Okay, and same question, infrastructure project, or same topic, and that's the parking decks. Okay, so you said, if I heard you correctly, I could have heard wrong, that the rest of the project will be 13 million, and
Rest of the project's 9 million.
9 million.
We've spent 3.3 million already, I think.
Okay, so if you're asking for 1.5 million, where does the rest come from?
Future years or bond issue. We're comfortable that, I mean, we brought up the parking decks probably back in 2016. We saw this as a potential. And so what we do is we focus on areas, and, instead of coming and saying, we want to bond $10 million, we are doing it in phases, and it's been successful.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I know that for sure. We've been talking about the parking decks ever since I've been on the board. So, all right, thank you so much for your time.
All right, I have next Member Schwarzy.
Thank you, Nick. A lot of those projects, certainly some of them are needed for the good and safety of our residents. Things maybe like the radio tower, obviously for emergency, maybe the York water main. Some of those things seem like great wish list items, needed, but maybe not in dire need. Again, I like your idea, Nick, of putting this money away, or at least most of it away, until we find out what's going to happen. I mean, I just don't know how we spend this money without knowing how much money we're going to be losing from the federal government grant. So My suggestion would be pick out whatever those items that are absolutely needed for the good and safety of our residents, put the rest in reserves for at least 3 to 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Shorzy. Member Ozog?
Thank you. Nick, could you bring up the chair's request again, the $7 million? Sorry.
They're bringing it up right now.
Okay. We are talking today about the 12 million. Fundamentally.
Ultimately, you guys have to decide on the entire 12.3 million.
Okay. So the chair, what I would like to propose in line with Member Schwarzy, I think we should hold on to this money and not do anything for the next 3 months and investigate where we're at in the beginning of the second quarter. I would like to see us go ahead with the two-storm, the flooding campus program and the Elmhurst project.
I will tell you that we need the 3 million because facilities has no capital to do that. This is how they fund their yearly capital. So, repairing, escalators, elevators, they need the 3 million. That's what they.
Okay.
So the 3 million is kind of a must have.
The chair's request was 7. So then 1 million of that would go toward the extra 5 million. So then we'd be looking at $6 million. So if we were to fill the chair's request, that wasn't the bottom line. General fund reserve was
So
$1 million.
you have, go to the last slide with both groups if you.
All the other projects have value, but I really think we don't have a clue what's coming. And yesterday's announcement was disturbing at the least. And I think we should hang on to every dollar we have.
And keep in mind, whatever action you take, you're not spending it today. You are simply parking it into an account, and this board will need to take action in the future to spend that money. So that's one thing.
I still feel like we should just take the $5 million and, fill the chair's request, and that takes care of facilities management as well. So fill that 7 million, but I think
do the 7 million, and
I think the other $5 million should just go into reserves, and we can revisit this at the end of the first quarter. Because we really don't know, and I think we should all be pretty nervous.
Okay, I have Member Evans next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With such a large surplus, I'm wondering, number one, I really appreciate these recommendations because I know that these are priorities in the county. I'm also wondering, just in the back of my mind, I've been thinking about, Nick, you had talked about at the wastewater treatment plants, there's a possibility of capturing the methane that is discharged now and using it for actual energy. And we were pretty far apart at the time of making that something that would give us a return on our investment. Is that the same?
it's the same. And the capital needed to clean and make that pipeline quality was so high that, I mean, there was a payback on it, but it was a risk because the pipeline quality, the skid you need to do it is probably $10 to $12 million. And it was just, the risk was so high that if, let's say the REN credit, I mean, not getting the weeds, the REN credits, if the market tanked on it, we would be upside down, and it's not our core responsibility. That's why we kind of backed away from it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, remember you online had a question?
Oh, yes. Thank you. I'm going to lower my hand now. Actually, Member Schwarzy did state earlier, as well as Member Ozog, that I am also in favor of sucking away most of this money. I understand that these are really important projects that you've presented for consideration today, and I really do appreciate that. You know, especially the water projects, the family center request, the 501 security gates. I understand how important those things are. Again, my concern now as economic development chair is that, you know, I've spoken with Lisa Schwach, and she is very concerned about the workforce projects and funds that are now potentially at risk. And this would affect a lot of DuPage residents with regard to workforce training, employment opportunities. And I'm just thinking of also, if this is a lot of this revenue is sales tax revenue. It's coming in and it's about bringing more business in, more people in, workers in, and that will help us with our sales tax revenue. So I am really thinking about what is the impact economically going forward with these federal dollars going away. And so I would really like to see us put more money away so that we can invest into economic development going forward as well.
All right, thank you, Member Yu. Member Header?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Nick, and the rest of the staff for this amazing presentation. I feel like it helps us to really break the information down in ways that helps us ask these important questions that we are asking today. Would you say that the considerations here in this presentation are based on the severity of the need? Like, can we maybe create a list of, say, this is our highest priority?
If you want to bring it back up, if you would, I will tell you that this was the refined version for kind of the most critical needs that we have. And we can kind of go through, obviously the first one that you can take out would be the York Center Water Project. That's something that's the first one you can take out. Hidden Lake Radio Tower, it has to be done this year. You're not meeting FAA guidelines for what's happening. There's no choice. We have to do it. Whether we pay for it here or pay for it out of contingency, it doesn't make a difference, but it has to be done. Family center request, they said they need furniture if we wait a year. I guess that's security gates. They're not working. So they'll continue to not work or we do them. That's up to you. Historical Museum, we can always push that off. It's an obligation we have. At some point, the whole envelope of the building we're responsible for. We can push it off. The stormwater quarry, that's a project that's going to be repaired. It's going to be repaired. So it's up to you. As far as the facilities management, your guess is as good as mine. When will the next flood come? You saw the one picture. I don't know. We could be good for 10 years. In 3 months, we could have that same type of flood.
And I thank you for saying that, because also I'm looking at it from a perspective of how can we make sure that we spend the money now in order to be able to save money in the future. If we spend less now to be able to save money and spend, what if we end up spending more money in the future if we don't take care of this stuff right now? So that's important as well. But I also concur with a lot of my board members here that yes, we have to be mindful in making sure that we keep some of this money in reserve to be more mindful of what we don't know is coming our way. Thank you.
Correct.
Quick question for you, Nick, before I go to the next person. We've talked about other funds that are available. We have, I think, contingency funds, correct? Do we know how much is available in those funds?
Contingency in a 25 budget. I think that this board approved 5 million in a contingency fund within a 25 budget. So you do have that available.
Okay.
Oh, what is it? 7 million in there? A little bit under 7, I'm sorry. A little bit under 7 and contingency.
About 7 million there?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that the board is aware that we also have those funds available for.
And you do have the 107 million currently in reserve. It does take a super majority of the board to pull anything from the reserves in the future.
Okay. Moving on, Member Honig.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank Nick and the staff for the presentation recommendations. And I also do want to echo with some of my board members and Member Schwarzy about we don't really know what's going to come down the pipeline. I guess my concern too is also to Member Hitter's response about being proactive with some of these measures. I know vehicles are extremely expensive and scarce and hard to find sometimes. So I know, like you were saying, that this isn't necessarily like an execution of these funds. It's moving them into their designated areas for that purpose. And, I'm concerned about the vehicle fund, because if we need a vehicle and we need to, proactively find one and you have to finance that is a concern that I see in other villages and other municipalities that they have a hard time. So that's a concern.
Here's our problem that we had. When we had budgetary constraints back in 14, 15, the first thing that was pulled out of the budget was all general fund vehicle purchases. And we fell behind. And it made it almost impossible. When we came out of it, if you think of all the police cars, everything we're doing, the purpose of the vehicle replacement fund is to normalize that every year. So all of a sudden, we don't come to you and say, we have $4 million worth of vehicle replacements we have to do in 1 year. That's the purpose of the vehicle replacement fund.
And thank you for the clarification, because I think that's important.
Thank you, Member Honig. Member Zay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When do we have to do this by?
So our Baker Tilly is going to be here in March. So I think, I'm trying to think through the timing. If you want to park some of this money in reserve or fund balance, most likely that will be reported in the final financial statements for 24. But you can always come back in 2025 and reappropriate that reserve. So the timing is really up to you. I would suggest
In February, do they gotta make a decision or is that?
March, really.
By the end of
yeah.
March?
Well, I mean,
Our financial statements get distributed at the end of May, but the field work is done in the third week of March.
Okay.
So they like to leave with everything being adjusted.
So we have a little time. I mean, I know everybody thinks
yeah.
the sky is
February.
falling right now, but
No.
I don't know that we're in violation of any federal executive order that the president put out, but we'll have to look that up. And again, if we do put it in reserves, something we haven't had to worry about for a long time, as we get over $110 million, that's going to open us up to tax objections, which we haven't had in a while because we've had a lower reserve, but that we're talking surplus, we're talking this, if people are paying attention, all of a sudden now we could be into suits for tax objections from utilities, everybody else that used to do that, large property owners in the county that could do that. And again, I know we're putting in their stormwater. We don't know what's going to happen yet. It's not like, again, we're going to spend this money tomorrow. There is a process that we have. This is going to go, we're going to see it. It's going to go to the committees. It's going to come back to finance. It's going to go to the county board. So before we spend any money, we're going to have plenty of time and plenty of information before we do that. I mean, I think some of these things, yes, could be put off, but security gates, the family center request, I mean, these aren't things that, you know, are going. Facility maintenance for the stormwater, we've already started engineering on it. I mean, why don't we continue that? So again, I don't think we need to make a decision today. I think maybe we can take a meeting and have some discussions and see when we know more about what's going on with the federal government, if we're in violation of any executive orders, we have time to make those corrections, or if we're not, we don't have to worry about it. So again, I don't want to, you know, it's concerning, something you have to pay attention to, but again, I think we have a little bit of time to make these decisions. Everybody take a look at it.
And just to clarify, I don't think anyone's worried that we're in violation of anything. I just think we're concerned about what money is going to be coming to our way to help fund things. So Member Krajewski, I have you next.
Thank you. You made a comment, Nick, about the facilities management capital, 3 million, we have to do that, and what was it, maybe the radio tower? I mean, if these things are so important, how come they weren't in our original budget we just did a year ago?
That's been the practice of the board forever, is the
Well, because
3
of these
million.
large surpluses, but it'd be nice to, I never heard that at the beginning of the year saying these are projects that really have to be done, or FAA says we have to do this one. That would have been nice to know at the beginning of the year, we could have maybe put those in the budget. That's just.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how the board has run the facilities management capital for, as long as I remember, is it 3 million is.
And we
is
wait to
added.
the end and come out, but if we don't have a surplus, then what do we do?
Yeah, that's the issue. I mean,
That's why. we
but
should-
facilities management has always been a balancing point for the budget.
Is that something that just was going through public works? I don't, cause I don't sit on that committee. I don't know.
Yeah, that's always been the case. We can.
That's fine. No, I'm just curious,
forward.
but
I mean, in
the question I
26
have is, I agree with a lot of my colleagues, but I think the issue, they talk about putting it into reserve. If we put it into reserve and then we go and have to spend it on something next year, that's what's creating a deficit spend.
That's a deficit spend.
Right, which we don't want to do. So I think there's another juggling act we can do by putting it into, say, vehicle replacement, capital replacement funds. We can put it in there and then ultimately do something with it later on.
And that's what I said. You can park it and
Well, that's
just
why I
put a
think,
brick on it.
I think we park it somewhere so we don't have to deficit spend, and then we don't raise our reserves that, you know, remember Zay has the question about taxpayers, et cetera. But we can park it in other spots, because otherwise, if we let it fall in reserves and decide what we want to do with it in 6 months, we're going to deficit spend by bringing it out of those reserves, which I don't think we want to report that. So I think we want to park. I think I agree with some of my colleagues that we should wait and see what we want to do, what happens, but we should park it in some other funds besides letting it go into reserves. Just
None of
infrastructure
these,
fund, any.
well, and every account where these are being put in, this money, are what's considered rollover accounts. There's a couple of them across the county. And it basically, facilities management, they have a rollover account, stormwater has a rollover account, DOT has a
That's why,
rollover account.
listen to what a lot of my colleagues are saying, let's wait and see what's going to happen with the federal government, who knows, the state government, then just let's put it into rollover funds.
Yeah.
So we have the ability to do something with it versus letting it fall into reserves and then we
There-
deficit spend coming out.
When,
So I
when
would-
you move it to reserves, it creates
Right,
a
exactly.
lot of other issues. Yeah.
That's why my suggestion would, I mean, just listen to colleagues, we want to wait and see what happens. Instead of letting it go in reserves, just put it into the rollover funds, because then we have access to that and we can change it however we want, whatever the board sees the need coming down the pipe in 4 months. We can then make the adjustments at that time, but that would be my suggestion is just
Completely agree.
let it go into rollover funds, and
And
then let us
just,
decide.
and just to continue on with that, with, if we take and we get a consensus on the items that we're all in agreement here, which I'm gonna probably take the chairs, separately, and then maybe each one separately, we'll get a consensus on each one separately. Can we just put them in those specific funds with a hold that basically we can hold until?
You have control over all the funds you're putting it in. You as a board have control. All of these are county departments that report to the board.
Okay,
So you will
so when the
not-
resolutions are passed, we could say, putting in this account.
So you can, it's very easy for you to put it into the accounts we're talking about here.
Mhm.
And in 3 months, you guys can pull it out of the accounts and be like, we're gonna use it for something else.
Okay, okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, I've got member Cahill next. All right, member Ozog?
I understand what you're saying about the surplus, but again, we absolutely don't know what's going to happen. And we could be at a situation where we could be looking at $25 million from our surplus going to, or from the 110 million. We could see that going all to community services.
It's
We
more
have,
than
we
25
really
million.
have, what's that?
It's more than 25 million.
Well, I'm throwing out
Yeah.
80%,
Yeah.
whatever. But I am very, very concerned that even that 5 million, if we were to park it there for the time being, I think that would be the most prudent thing to do. I know it increases it, but I understand the legal ramifications, but the justification for doing that right now, can't we just take it out?
Pulling it out of
In a
reserve-
quarter, we can pull it out.
So I will say, this board has not pulled money out of reserve, and I can't remember the last time you as a board pulled it out of reserve. It's probably been decades since you've pulled it out of reserve. So I mean, as long, I mean, you can park it wherever you want to.
Okay.
I mean, member Zay, I mean, you longest serving on a board. Do you remember when last time we pulled it out of reserves?
It was right after Lincoln's second inaugural address.
I'm still
We didn't
at,
have money to take out of reserves for a
Yeah.
long time, so it's been a
But-
long time, yeah.
And question for that, will that harm our financial rating? No.
So the pulling out of reserve won't?
I'm not finished.
Okay, I'm sorry, member Ozog, continue.
Okay, what I would still propose for today is that we go ahead with the $7 million that the chair has requested. And I really think that we should put the other 5 million into contingency, because I don't think we're going.
Contingency or reserves?
Or to reserves, excuse me. I think we should put it into reserves, because we are not really going to know what's happening. This order yesterday was the first of who knows what. And I don't think we should be looking at spending any of this until June 1st, when we have a clear picture of what's going on.
Well, you guys can say, don't spend a single penny of this till June 1st.
Can we do, so if we did that, and we would now then approve each of the projects?
Yeah, you can say, right now, you can say, move it and don't spend it till June 1st.
Okay, I think we really, and then in that case,
So I'm gonna go through each one and we'll do a consensus with that,
I think
caveat.
we should put a condition on it for June 1st, because it's gonna take 2 quarters to
1st or
figure out what's
almost-
happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only exception would be facilities management capital, because we're gonna
Well,
need that to do.
And again, I don't have a problem with the 7 million that the chair had requested months ago, but I think we need to be very cautious.
Okay, we've got one more comment and then we'll finish this up, and then I'll finish up. Member Shorzy.
Thank you. Look, I mentioned what's going on with community services. We know that's a highly federally funded department here. A couple questions. Do we ever include federal funding in our budget? I mean, are there line items for federal funding, and how much?
That's what I'm gonna go through, and a new business I'll go through with the federal funding,
Okay.
what we have.
Okay, then, just to be fair, I just want, if it's okay, if Mary Keating comes up, just to explain to this board the process of how community services funding work. So, Just so.
You want to do
everyone-
that now or under new
We'll do that
business?
under new business.
We're gonna do that under new business. We're gonna have a whole discussion on
Yeah,
that
the
under
whole
new
discussion
business.
under new
Okay.
business.
Okay, it'll
Okay.
come up later. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We've got one more, I guess, member Covert, and then that will be it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with a lot of my colleagues on board here, and it all makes sense. I mean, everybody has wonderful ideas. What I'm most comfortable with is I am concerned about the deficit spend, which I believe will affect our bonding rating, right?
No.
Or would it not?
No, that was my question,
ahead.
no.
So, well, the deficit spending, you're talking about when our operational costs are more than our ongoing revenues. That's true deficit spending. This money is being set aside as from reserves that can be reappropriated as one-time capital expenses. That can be easily explained to a bond rating agency.
Mhm.
And our level of reserve will still be higher than the industry standard of 25%. So in my opinion, I don't see that as being a negative for a potential bond rating decline.
Okay, because I have concerns about we don't know what's going to happen in the next few years. I agree.
That's a difference.
So, but I was also thinking that if we park our money in the different categories that we have up on the screen and put the surplus in instead of reserves in a rollover account, like as Member Krajewski suggested, we have that option and freedom to take it out of from those different buckets and use them for whatever we need. So we're safe.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear. So if you pull it out of whatever fund in the future, use it for capital, you're fine. If you pull it out and use it for operational in the future, that creates a deficit spend that will impact that will impact our bond rating.
If that's what you're talking about, if for whatever reason this federal funding goes away and we continue the programs and still spend that money, now you are creating an operational deficit and deficit spending. Yeah, well, I thought you meant taking it out of reserves to fund these projects. In that situation, that's an issue.
That's something we'll have to tackle when we get there, but no matter where you put it, you're going to be creating deficit spending. No matter where you put it, whatever account, anywhere.
Okay, thank you so much. And I thank you so much for everybody's input. I too share your concerns with what's going on. We don't know enough of what's going on, so I know we're gonna have a few more discussion about that under new business today. Let me give you a couple ideas in terms of, I am totally in support of the chair recommended surplus allocation. I think that's something that we need to do. Facilities management capital is needed. Campus flooded proofing project for the $1 million. I've seen floods. I was very involved in the 2013, and it's something we've just done all these repairs to all these buildings on our campus. We definitely don't want to get them flooded and have to redo all that because that's where most of our ARPA funds, a lot of anyone who's went. Vehicle replacement fund, I am very much in favor of that because I just read that perhaps with the tariffs, the price of cars is actually going to go up. So you want to make sure that you're aware of that. That's going to be happening too. And then, of course, it's always good to put general fund. So can I get a consensus for all of the chair recommended surplus allocation? Can I put a hands up for consensus? Anybody opposed?
Well, I'd like to hear this new business discussion because it all pertains to what we're going to be talking
Well,
about.
not really, because we can actually earmark this. I understand your concern, but we're going to talk about that then and what we can do to actually be prepared. So, okay. We just did consensus on the chair one. So you have a question on that?
I already voted yes for the chair's remarks, but I do have a question real quick. If we're taking consensus on all of these items, could you refresh me, maybe Nick, refresh me on which quarry has the sinkhole? Is that the Elmhurst quarry?
Elmhurst Quarry.
Okay, all right.
Elmhurst Quarry.
Thank you.
That's subsurface issue.
As long as you're taking a consensus, I would know.
Yeah, I'm going to
Just
do on each
thank
one individually. Okay. Going under the chairs, we've got a consensus, so that one we're going to go forward.
Does that have a June 1 deadline or does it have a June 1 freeze or not?
I think those are not.
So, okay, that would be.
Is everybody in consensus with
good if
that?
it
I
was
think we're
not.
okay with those. No. Now going on to the additional funding proposed for today, Member Galassi, you have a question on that?
As you go through these, Nick, could you just comment on what the level of, is this something we're gonna spend regardless of this
So-
today? Like I know you said
So
the
the-
family center request, we
the-
wouldn't have to spend
the-
it, but
the
the Hidden
chair
Lake
rec-
Tower, we would.
Absolutely. Chair recommended, I'll tell you this, the 3 million will be spent regardless. The campus flood proof. Okay, so as far as the list to the right, I mean, I will defer to stormwater for the quarry about how fast we're gonna spend. Facilities management, we can hold off easily till end of the year to do that. The only one on that list that are the two that actually are kind of the most time sensitive. Hidden Lakes Radio Tower, 250,000, that one is. And I hate to say it, the J.R. McBride Bridge, because if they do improvements and we lose our window of working with them, then we're done. So those are kind of really the only two that are really time sensitive.
So is it correct to say the only thing on here that's really optional that won't be spent, that we won't be obligated to spend at some point this year is the family center request?
The York Center, you do not have to move forward with the York Center. I mean, that's
So those
separately-
two, is
Yeah,
there
the York
anything else?
Center, the Family Center, if they need improvements for that, I mean, Historical Museum, you guys don't have to do that, but that's an envelope that we're responsible for. So all of this, you can just say yes, but don't spend anything until June and you come back here. I mean, it's up to you.
Okay, thank you, member. We've got one more question from member Eckhoff, and then we're gonna have to go with these because we have another presentation and then another discussion. So go ahead, member Eckhoff.
Well, I just don't understand why we're having to decide this all today. We're talking about things that, are coming down the road. We don't know what's happening in the feds. Next week, because something else will happen, we're gonna discuss it all again. So bring it to us as an agenda item as we need it, the chair's recommendation.
We're trying to give some consensus to the staff on what their direction they would need to go.
I don't think anybody's got a problem with any of these projects, but everyone.
Well, we don't know that 'cause we haven't
what we're
taken a
doing.
consensus yet. Right.
Just bring them up for a vote one by one. I
Well,
mean,
as
we're
member
talking
Cahill just
things
said,
to
this has to be
death.
done by March, but before Baker Tilly gets here. So. Okay, I'm gonna move on because we really are going to run out of time in this meeting. Member Desart?
Thank you. So Nick, you're saying that the main projects that we should do are the radio tower and the bridge. So
Right.
you don't believe that these security gates are necessary? You said that
I
they
mean-
weren't working.
They're not functioning right now. I mean.
And so that's not important?
It's important, but can we hold off for 8 months? Sure, we can, but I
Yes.
mean, right now it's functioning. I mean, it's safety. I mean, if you want to authorize the Hidden Lakes, the J.R. McBride Bridge, and the other one, that would be what, about 350,000 out of that 5.3 million?
Thank you, Nick.
Okay, we're gonna move on and get a consensus starting now. On the Stormwater Elmhurst Quarry Project, I'm gonna look at member Zay. Is this something that can wait till June for this? Elmhurst Quarry, can this wait till June? So we could put this in there, but with. And you need your mic.
Yeah, we're still investigating what the issue is. So yeah, I'm not gonna spend $1.5 million tomorrow. We still have
Okay,
the
so this is
original
something that can be
million,
put on there with a
keep
hold
going.
till June. Okay, so can we get a consensus that we
But I
put
want
this
the
there?
interest until June.
No. Can we get a holding consensus for this item with holding it till June? Okay, that one we're moving along. For the facilities management infrastructure projects, I believe this also could be held
We
till
can
June.
absolutely hold it till June.
Okay, so can we get a consensus on this with holding it till June? Yes, we got a consensus on that. Hidden Lake Radio Tower, that's something we need now. So can we get a consensus to move this along now? I'm seeing a consensus. We'll move that along now. York Center Water Project, I think we're just gonna put a hold on that,
That's
I
fine.
think for now. It makes me very sad because I think that they like to have some lake water, but we will revisit that down the road. J.R. McBride Bridge Project, that is a safety issue, so consensus now. Okay. Family Center request for $62,000. That's something that they can wait, I guess, until June, but they don't ask for very much, I know. Okay, price increase. So that's consensus for now for giving them the $62,000. Okay, I see consensus for that. 501 security gates, I think that's something that should be fixed now. I think it would be good consensus to move this forward now. I see a consensus for that. DuPage County Historical Museum capital projects. My only concern here is the steps are, you said, a safety issue, and so we're
Yeah.
talking about liability
The
now. So now we're gonna
safety-
have a liability issue there. So that's my concern.
So as far as the historical museum, we've got a lot of design to do. So if you guys are good with it, we can hold off till June.
Okay.
Because we've got to design and bid and everything. We are not going to be ready to build this until easily June or later.
Okay, so we have a consensus to move this along to end with the hold until June. Okay. General fund reserve contribution, $500,000. We're just moving it to general fund.
We don't do anything because if we do nothing, it just automatically goes there. So you don't. Even
So
take
just a move to consensus to move it to general fund. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, okay. And the Department of Transportation Maintenance Garage, a motion to approve with a hold till June. So it's not even under control, trucks. Okay, okay. I think we've got you have all your consensus? Great,
Thank you.
okay.
Madam Chairman, I do have a question. Where are we gonna put this extra money then? Are we gonna put it in the infrastructure fund or are we gonna put it in reserves and then deficit spend next year?
Well,
'Cause I'm
that's-
against that.
So you.
So we're talking
have-
about the York
Center.
Center, the $450,000.
If you do nothing, it'll go to reserves.
Well, all the ones we said no, the 1.5 million, the 1.5 million,
No, those are hold till June.
June, but
The only one we said no to was the 450,000.
where are we putting it? So you're gonna give it to stormwater, I'm not gonna spend it.
No, we're not giving it stormwater.
No. We are, everything you've talked about, we're going to take the resolutions to move them to the proper accounts. And then the June, you have a June, nothing happens till June. So like for that one, stormwater would get $2.5 million. You're spending $1 million, but $1.5 million would sit there till June.
Okay, all right. Okay, perfect. Okay, so moving on, we're gonna go into our small agency grant program presentation. We've got Mary Catherine to come up there, please. And hopefully many of you watched the Human Services meeting because it was explained thoroughly there also. So hopefully this will go quickly. Thanks.
I'm gonna read the room here. I think not so long, right? We lived this round before, maybe just for the benefit of the new members, I'll just say a few comments. We did this program last year. It was really a program that was member-led. We have recently gotten back the results from that program. I sent that out on Friday, so you should have that. I did want to say that we have some updates on that. You can read the slide here in terms of who's responded and who got the final awards. But as of this last, over the weekend, actually, we got a few more people that responded. So right now we're in contact with mostly like the last 6. We have only one person who hasn't responded to our calls. So we're wrapping up round 1. And we're going to round 2. Katrina and I agreed to keep it simple. Round 1, round 2, so there's no confusion. Round 2 is really pretty much built on what we did the first time around. Just to recap for the members, this is a lot simpler was our intent, not not a lot of rules, not the rules that we had certainly under CARES and ARPA, but we're going to keep with the 6th district approach and the same broad focus that we had before. Next slide. After the last time around, we have a few things that we're clarifying. That's what's kind of on here in the italics, but you have to have, for example, your Secretary of State application has to be there at the time you apply. 1 or 2 changes, these mostly with the exception of 2 of them are the same as what we had before. One change that we made though was that you're going to have to complete round 1 reporting before you can apply for round 2. The other thing that we made was a change about revenue rules. It's the item that's in italics. We required that, if the average revenue of the last 3 years, if that's at about $300,000, that's also sufficient. So we made that a little bit more general. Next slide. The slide just shows pretty much the same as what we had before. The only changes, last time around we did $25,000. This time around we're doing $30,000. Next slide. we're gonna get the money out, we're gonna pay them. I will say that this is a really big concerted effort between like 7 different departments, community services, the executive staff, GIS helps, the auditors team reviews everything, the ARPA team, IT has done a ton of work with it. Okay. All right, and last slide. Okay, that's the timeline. Hopefully we can get it up and running tomorrow is the plan. So, yeah, I don't know if you want to take a second and look at this, but this is our plan as of right now. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you for the very quick brief overview of that. I appreciate that. If you wanted more information, watch the Human Services meeting because it was very much explained there also. Member Eckhoff has the very first question.
Oh, thank you. Where are we getting the money to pay for this?
This money's coming from ARPA interest.
Just from the interest.
Yeah, and we allocated this in 23.
So is this the last year we're gonna have ARPA funds available for it or what?
No, we actually allocated another year. So we're planning on round 3 in 12, 16 months from now.
So if the bottom fell out because of something that's happening in Washington or Springfield, could any of this money be used by the county
Yes.
generally?
Yes.
So I guess my question is, why are we doing this now when we're considering putting everything else on hold?
Like I said at the beginning, this is definitely your program and we want to be responsive to what you want. That's a legitimate question.
Can this wait till June to start the ball rolling?
No, there's no issue at the time.
My answer would be, this is a program for our most vulnerable residents. It's all 501c3s for human services. So it's people in need, and I think it's a good program to
I'm not saying it's a
partake
bad
now.
program. I'm saying the first thing you have to do is fix the roads and do all the, things that the county does. And this is more discretionary spending, I would say. So discretionary spending seems to be kicked till June. I would suggest if
I
everyone
appreciate
thinks
your.
the world's
sorry.
coming to an end with Washington, then we could kick this till June.
And I appreciate that, member Eckhoff. I'm going to agree with member Schwarzy. I think that their funding also is getting perhaps halted. So we want to make sure that we're there to help where we're needed. So I'm going to be with member Schwarzy that I think this is very important along with our roads.
Thank you.
And member Ozog's next, and then I have you, member Tsar. Member
Mayor-
Ozog's first.
Mary Catherine, I'm sorry, have you sent this presentation?
It went on Friday to everybody.
Did not
so-
see this, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll resend it.
Okay, I admitted it to the whole world. Okay, I just wanted to be sure. Could you flip back to the page of the criteria? This one, yes, this one here, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Is that your end of your question?
Yes. thank
Okay,
you.
member Tsar.
Thank you. And I did want to respond to my colleague, member Eckhoff. In committee, what we talked about were that some of the districts, like District 5, got an overwhelming number of requests, and some of the districts got an underwhelming number of requests. So what came up in committee was, what do we do with the district's money who can't afford, who have money left over? Do you give it to the other districts? And what we decided in committee was, no, we'll put that into a surplus fund for later distribution as needed. So I just wanted to, let you know, member Eckhoff, that is, some of the money will be in a fund just like you described. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Member LaPlante.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to address last time we did this. It was extremely work intensive and it depended on the amount of applicants per district. My district had the most and it was just a really heavy workload. Can you address how we're going to make that different this time, even if it's just simply now we know what to do? Second part of that question is for things like this, the selection process, that also, just as a heads up for how to improve things this go round, when we involve all the board members, obviously not just the ones that are on committee, that also, there was a real gap in knowledge in terms of what the guidelines were, what was, approved what wasn't. If we can address that to make this a bit more seamless, because then I had to go and do double the work after doing the work, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, to answer your number two question, that's why we're doing this today. We didn't do this, 2 years ago when we first started this program. As far as the intense work, I don't want to speak for the finance staff because they're the ones that really carried the hard work, but I know you've done it once now. It's a little easier. And we met, Vice Chair Garcia, myself, finance, community services, and our executive staff met a couple times, and we spent a lot of time. How do we make this easier? How do we make it easier for everybody? How do we get the word out? And really, I think the discussions we had, some of the minor changes that you probably don't even notice, has made it a lot easier for everybody. Now, when it comes to you and your seat mates deciding who's going to get the money, especially District 4 and District 5, who had $500,000 worth of requests, that's part of the good part of this program is it's up to us to decide. The bad part of the program, it's up to us to decide. So that's where you have it. So thank you for your question.
All right, thank you. Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. I think that's all the questions we have. We're gonna go on to old business. Does anybody have any old business? We're going to new business? No, I see none. So going into new business, I'm gonna bring Nick back up for discussion on the news of the day.
Could I make a suggestion, just because I know North Central College, they have students out there? Would this be worthwhile? Could we do this in new business and county board and have
Sure.
the same discussion in county board? And that way we're not delaying the students from getting back there.
That was what I thought we were gonna do, but I agree with
Okay.
you. That's where I think it would be best done. So, Member Krajewski, you had something to add to
I
that?
had one question for Jeff, and you brought up the cannabis when you were doing that presentation, that we have 16. 16 now, we used to have 10. Is there a way we can just check with the state to make sure all 16 are paying the county sales tax, that they're all hooked up? Especially when these new ones come up? Because we had 10 before, and now I think we're up to 16, but is there a way we could just?
The only way I can get information on a dispensary sales is if they're in unincorporated. If they're in,
Even though we collect 3%
Yeah.
on that?
yep,
Because, yeah, I would
yeah.
like, I don't know how we check to see. I think there's gotta be a mechanism we should be able to check to see that.
Maybe we could just send somebody in to each and buy something and
Well,
get the taxes on there.
We've increased by 6, we've increased by 6 more facilities.
I
But
used the
our-
building and zoning department to call all the municipalities.
Yeah, we could just check on that, because we increased six dispensaries, but yet we're still getting the same amount of revenue. And I don't know, we sent the stuff to the clerk or the state just to make sure that they're all charging it. Because they may think they're in an incorporated town, they don't owe it, so I just want to make sure that there's. a
Okay,
way to
I'm
check.
sure that Jeff will take care of it and check and let you know. Member Krajewski, I'm sure the whole board also. Okay, just a reminder also that we're gonna have a picture in front of the dais for the Heart Association Month. So all of you who are wearing red, please come up here. If you don't have red on, they do have scarves that you can loan you, or a red tie if you don't have that. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion by Member Hunters,